I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
Just a reminder, folks, you do need to clean in your microphones, even though they're brand new and shiny, you need to clean your toes and make sure that they're turned on.
Chastity. It's on.
Okay, all right, okay, we'll take a while.
And Matt has one. Good.
First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the July 24th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes? First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the July 24th.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
okay, now discussion, corrections or anything? So the green light should come on.
I had a correction.
Yeah. Okay. On the offering of the space on page 4 of the minutes,
Yeah.
page 5 of our packet down at the bottom, the commitment from the town council to consider offering space was requested.
Yeah.
When we go to page 6 of the minutes on 7 of our packet, the vote is saying the town council offered to offer space instead of considering offering space. I'm pretty sure we were voting on considering offering space.
I'd have to listen to the minutes on that. Yeah.
I think if I remember right, the space, what would be talked about was rent. So the space was being voted on, yes, then a price would be.
All right, we'll have to review the tape on that, if that's okay. Yeah. Yeah, seems like, all right, thank you. Joy, your comment,
Yeah, page 8.
page 8. Okay,
It says, under town council comment, where I commented that I thank town manager Spuck for his detailed monthly reports, which I do thank you for that, Matt. But what I actually said was the text that he sends out, that is the manager's minutes. He sends out a text.
oh, yeah, he's doing
Yeah.
that new thing. Yeah, the new, yeah, I remember you did say that.
Do you mean the email?
I think it's email, text.
Yeah,
both.
yeah, it was manager minutes thing, yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what I was
I do
commenting on.
remember saying that, yeah, right, yeah. You can probably correct that. Okay, any more discussion on this one? All in favor of accepting the July 24th minutes?
Aye.
Don't we have to go back and look at that for the,
Well,
Part about-
we'll look at the, tape, yeah, if there's a question about that, yeah, we'll have to amend that.
so can we accept them before doing that?
We just voted on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't take back the vote. You're right, yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me, as a point of order, in the last public comment session, I requested that my comments be put in the minutes, and they were not. And
Okay.
it's in
did.
that section that it was stated that those comments that I made would be in the minutes as I printed them.
Do we have a hard copy of that? Okay, we can put that in there. So they would go on the website, on the finalized minutes. Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay, approval of minutes from the June 26, 2023 meeting. Do we have a motion to accept those minutes? Can't do anything until we get a motion.
So moved.
Second? Okay, now discussion? Any discussion on
Just a
this?
question. I remember there were some issues that we talked about at the last meeting that was the reason why these got pushed back. Or all the issues resolved to the satisfaction of the people who raised them.
Well, one of the persons who raised them is not here to speak, so I can only speak for myself. Yes, Debbie included our comments. However, I did not see anything from Mr. My neighbor, Don Ruthing, any of his comments. There was somewhere in here it said that, Debbie, you would know where it is, that he did speak, but his comments were not included.
His,
Well, his comments were not part of the public comment section, and they were spoken from the audience. So-
did he give you
And I
a,
did say the following comments were out of order and not part of the public comments. Vice Mayor Oswald allowed the comment.
did he give you a hard copy of anything or not? Okay,
He was speaking to Mr. Dackman's presentation.
Okay, all right.
And at the bottom of handwritten page 12, there is a mention of that.
Yes.
And, oh, okay.
Very last sentence.
Oh, right, yeah, I see. Right, okay, all right. Do we want to hold off? Does Mavis have a comment about this? Or I can't remember what the conversation was about why these minutes weren't.
Debbie would know.
I don't remember specifically what she said. I wrote down, there's a couple of grammatical errors that I think she requested that were changed, but Joy had the
All right,
ones about the presentation of the sound.
all right. There's any other comments on these minutes? All in favor of accepting them?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All righty. We have two public hearings tonight. The first public hearing is for the CDBG Northeast Region Neighborhood Funding Grant. I think Eric Lindsey is here, the project director, correct? You want to come on up and tell us what we need to, and make sure that mic is working, because people had trouble hearing that before.
All right. Good evening, council. My name is Eric Lachansky with the Accomack Northampton Planning District Commission. The purpose of this public hearing is a twofold part. We're looking to apply for supplemental funding from the grant that we received back in January of 2022 for community revitalization, which includes sidewalks, ditch cleanouts, ditch maintenance, and demolition of 6 structures and rehabilitation of 10 homes. This public hearing is in reference to a one-time supplemental grant that will be made available, is available currently, and one of the requirements of the grant is to have public hearings. Right now, we're looking at applying to make up the gap in funding for the rehabs that we're forecasting.
Do you have dollar amounts or anything, or what?
So I have bids out currently that will be received back on September the 15th. At that point, I'll have $25,000 allotted for each home. So once I get the bid amounts back at the next town council meeting, I'll present the actual amount that we will be applying for in the gap that I'm likely forecasting will be over budget.
So we need to have need to open the public hearing for any public comment on the CDBG Northeast Neighborhood Funding Gap Funding. Any public comment about this? Does everybody even know what we're doing up there? Sure, Eric can tell us what's going on. Yeah.
So we applied for a grant in the northeast section of, sure. Should I just take it? Just take the floor? Yeah, I'm just kidding. All right, so we applied for a grant in the northeast section of an Ancock that is servicing low to moderate income individuals. The grant consists of demolishing 6 derelict homes, rehabilitating 10, and we're looking at putting a sidewalk up Pine Street to connect Market Street and Pine Street to afford for better accessibility, as well as fixing culvert pipes and drainage issues throughout the neighborhood. And we were awarded $978,000 for that. And the purpose of the public hearing, like I said earlier, is to make up for the forecasted overages in the budget for the rehabilitation of the 10 homes.
So we're doing some lighting work as well, correct?
So
Lighting work.
Lighting as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
lighting.
lighting upgrades as well.
Oh. So, and nothing has been started, correct?
We have slated for 3 demolitions coming in September, which will be looking at 4 Church Street as the main one to go down first, and then 15 Cross and 8 Watson.
Any public comment now that everybody knows, or any more questions of Eric? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay,
Thank you, council.
all right, thank you. And you're going to come back next month to,
That's correct. Yes,
okay.
with the dollar amount figures.
Okay,
right.
thank you. All right. This is, was there was a, what kind of, was there a match for this with town?
No, there's no match.
This is straight funds from the,
Yeah, $978,000, no match.
No
We're
Tampa.
contributing, $7,500 worth of labor to do some of that culvert and ditch cleanup.
Okay. Can everybody hear Matt when he's, we can't hear you.
We tested this earlier.
I know.
Yours is not working.
I don't,
Hear me now?
oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, you actually have to eat this microphone.
I know, yeah, you're right. All right, well, thank you. Thank you, Eric, for coming. Thank you. Appreciate it, yeah.
I have a question.
Or the amount or the whatever it is that we're being asked to. Are we being asked to vote on requesting additional money, or is he informing us that he is doing that? Where will that come from, et cetera?
It will come from a source other than the town.
Okay,
I
so
think
it's just information to
But,
us.
yes,
it's a requirement. They have to
Thank
have a
you.
public
The
hearing.
next Public hearing, he's gonna come back with more specific bids and talk about how the town has utilized funds from DHCD before and how effective it's been and what the impact has been. So that's gonna be the nature of the next month's hearing. We will not be approached for more money.
Thank
We
you.
can
That,
always choose to do that, but we won't be approached for it.
okay,
And ANPDC is really good at finding other sources of funds.
okay. Thank you. That was helpful.
Well, there is a steering committee of the Northeast group that's been somewhat determining what they, what priorities they wanted for the neighborhood. And Matt, you were talking about that, Mavis, about priorities. So
Mhm.
they would weigh in on that if funds were short, correct? Yeah. Okay. All right. The The next public hearing is ordinance change, Article 2, financial matters. I guess that's up to you. Yeah.
Yeah, let me speak to this. We, the town, has used VML's arm of investment house called VIP for many, many, many years to help us manage our reserves or our savings account. They had their normal annual audit and realized they didn't have a copy of our ordinance to allow us to work with them, even though we've been working with them for 20 years. So this ordinance puts us in compliance with their audit. All it does is allow us to continue to do the things that we've been doing. And this was written, by the way, by their attorney.
So this is a brand new ordinance. So we've never had an ordinance in effect or
We've not had an ordinance effect, so we slipped it into section 16, which is the financial matters. Seemed to make sense.
okay. So all right. So the red on the second page too,
Yes,
that's the new part. All right. Okay. All right.
And on page 19,
19. Yes, correct.
But on page 19 is that
Two
what's
changes.
read as changes.
I would
Yes.
assume so. All right, we're going to open this up for public hearing. We're required to do that. Is there any public comment on this?
Did you read the ordinance
Uh,
we're talking about?
It was in the packet. It's fairly extensive.
It's
Yeah.
available online also prior
Yeah.
to the meetings.
Yeah.
That's really only two.
But because they haven't read it, can we just go through? It's not that long. It's
We have a
couple of-
lengthy meeting tonight.
Well, I mean, the second page is pretty short, but the first part, there's only two, it is 2 pages. The first part is describes what the fiscal year is, which is July 1st. The second section talks about what we do with the worthless check fees. And the only change there is that there may be an administrative fee charged in addition to the fee, which may not exceed the actual fee charged by the bank to the town. So it describes what we do with return checks.
And I had a question in that
Yeah.
area, Matt, too, because.
Can I
we
describe
don't-
this
oh,
first
We
and go
don't
on?
do a fee.
Yeah, let me go through
Okay,
this
go
and then we'll go. And then the second section was our financial matter about credit card fees. And the town may impose a fee not to exceed the amount actually charged to the town for processing such payment, plus a reasonable administrative fee on the revenue collected. So we're basically able to charge a service charge, right? And that's only half of it. Now, the rest of this is all new. And this, the section 16, trust for investing funds. That pursuant to section 2 of section of the Virginia Code, the town council of the town of Anacog hereby establishes a trust for the purpose of investing funds other than sinking funds determined to derive the most benefit from the investment strategy in investments authorized under the Investment of Public Funds Act, jointly with other participating or political subdivisions and public bodies in the trust fund. A copy of the Virginia Investment Pool Trust Fund Assessment, the trust fund agreement, is available with the financial policies at the town of Hancock. The participating political subdivision is the town of Hancock agrees to become a participating political subdivision in the trust fund. The trustee that the town of council of the town of Hancock does hereby designate the town manager of the town of Hancock to serve as the trustee of the town of Hancock with respect to the trust fund and determine what funds under his control shall be invested in the trust fund. And the town manager authorization that the town council of the town of Hancock hereby authorizes the town manager to execute and deliver the trust joinder agreement for participating political subdivisions under the Virginia Investment Pool Trust Fund, a copy of which is available. So basically, Matt, can you detail the details of that, what those 3 last paragraphs?
Basically, there is a joiner agreement and a trust pool agreement that we are required as a municipality to join in order to use VIP as the manager of our reserves.
So you've been doing this already for
Yeah.
since you've been town manager and previous managers have done it.
Yes.
Okay. So we're basically codifying this.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now questions, please. Yeah.
Is there a check and balance on this? Because it says that the town manager is designated as and solely.
It's not solely, the mayor is also an authorized transfer agent, a person that can do that.
Okay, should that not be in here as well if he is? It doesn't seem to me that you put it like in writing like this and then it's one person.
Yeah, I'm happy to make that change. It's just, this was written by their attorney, so I didn't want to take too much
liberty with his words.
Review this?
Yes,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
yes.
Our attorney reviewed this? Yeah, okay. All right, that's up to, I mean, I don't,
Because government should always have a check and balance is all I'm saying. And if you are looking at the sole responsibility of the town manager being the only person who handles this trust fund.
well, I know my name's,
I would think your name or the mayor's.
well, can you give us an example of what you do with this? How it, the daily, I mean, what happens with this?
Well, day to day, nothing.
Okay, so,
Once a quarter, we'll rebalance based on the financial policy of council. So if there's earnings or losses in any specific account, we'll rebalance to the amount that council had said, suggested it is.
so, I'm still not clear about rebalance what?
It's 6 different funds.
That we have, we-
You've told us that we're supposed to have so much in each one. The utility reserve is supposed to have X. The
Right.
Capital reserve is supposed to have Y. At the end of the quarter, based on income or loss, I rebalance that and just bring it back to the amount that's supposed to be in. there.
so you're not recommending investment in like, in IBM or stock?
So the
that-
state law, and Eric is on the line, he can speak to what we're allowed to invest in. That's why
Right.
we went with VML's investment pool, is they know the state law on what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do.
Right.
But you're,
This is
So-
a savings account and a bond.
They do all the investing for
Oh,
us.
yeah, no, there's no investing on my part.
Right, so you're just balancing accounts from one, for like with the reserve fund for the sewer, you keep it at a certain level and you're
Correct.
moving money from one fund to the next.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so
Question. Is it, and this is trying to give a not too onerous response to Maphis's concern. Is it feasible to get a periodic report of the movements that are done between, among, into, out of
Every month
those
you get a
parts?
report of the reserves and what the required
Yes.
balances are.
Yes.
You
So
do it
it's,
every
it's
single
this,
month.
it's that, it's not a separate thing.
Nope, it is exactly. that.
It's in
Thank you.
it's in the packet every month under the cash and reserve report.
Correct.
My
and if
que-
I could add that we recently
Allison, go on.
adopted the financial policies. And that's what spells out how much has to be in each fund.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll finish.
Fine.
You said that when you started speaking that we have not had this ordinance before, then how can we have edits to it if we've not had it?
It's not edits. The red line is not being crossed through, it's underlined. So that's
It's been
new.
added,
Yeah, that's what
and
new.
these were added by Mr. Gregory?
No,
No.
they're added by their attorney.
Okay,
The one thing that I see is on the first paragraph on page 20, the last line, policies is missing.
You're right.
It's C.
right, it is, yeah.
So thank you.
Okay, maybe follow up on what. you're
Yeah,
saying.
there are additions on page 19. The additions are in red.
The additions are in red underline.
Right, okay.
and
So,
the redactions are red cross through.
okay, so the credit card fee has been waived by the town. So why is this in here?
Because it gives us the opportunity to adjust that without having to write a new ordinance. While we're adjusting this, nobody's saying that we are going to change it from 0, but this would allow us to change it from 0 without having to write a new ordinance.
Okay.
It gives us the ability to charge a credit card fee if we wanted to.
Right.
Okay.
pending council approval.
Yeah, and we were not charging any credit card.
Part of the annual budget.
We're not charging any fee to
Correct.
we have never charged a fee. Okay, correct. Any other questions about this? You're happy with it? Okay, this was a public hearing, so I'll close the, any public comment again now that we've gone through? Does anybody have any comment? You're welcome. I hope. Okay, all right. All righty, any other public comment on this? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay. All righty. The next item is public presentations, which we don't have any. 7, council action. We're back on the financial matters. We need to vote to accept this ordinance. We've had a public hearing. We need a motion to approve this this ordinance, the additions to the ordinance?
Oh, so we're going right from public hearing to
Well, that-
approval?
Well, that's the next item on the agenda, yes. So we need a motion to, we can discuss it in a second, but we need a motion to accept the changes to our orders.
I so move.
Second it.
Did you hear that? Yeah.
I
Okay.
second it.
Okay, discussion now? Anybody have any discussion about this? You happy? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
No? Okay. All right, thank you, Matt. for that. Okay, the next matter is the resolution, the application for an IRF loan for 20 Market Street. I have a conflict of interest with this since 20 Market Street is owned by my wife and I. So I'm going to be leaving the room while this is discussed, and Matt can, you know.
All right, last October, there was an application for a planning grant from DHCD, and a planning grant, the purpose of a planning grant is to do basically what it's entitled, is to plan for what might be done with that property if the adequate resources were made available. So this grant was applied for because the council allowed for it to be written. So they received $64,000 for the planning grant. That's usually it pays for architect fees, planning studies, feasibility studies, market studies, you know, what will work for that building, that space, this town at this time. So that part of it, that's how that works. At that point, you take the information that you gathered during the planning grant and you apply to DHCD for the project that you've planned to move forward with. The way DHCD works, though, is that the application is very, very close to the time that the planning grant is supposed to close. So there's not normally time to have a fully completed plan before you make the application. So what I would say is this resolution, while it says the town can apply for this, the application due date, I believe, is at the end of October. Because these are extensive applications, it takes weeks and weeks. So if we were to wait, we would lose the opportunity to prepare an adequate application for the planning grant that's already been issued. So this resolution allows the town to make an application for an industrial revitalization loan in the amount of $1 million for 20 Market Street. That $1 million, because it's a revitalization revolving loan fund, would come back to the town with each loan payment. So if it were 20-year terms at 2.5%, we would get payments back of $5,300 per month. Those dollars can then be loaned out to another local business person whose project meets similar needs. So we don't have to wait 20 years to loan another $1 million. If somebody needed $10,000 and it met this need and it was in that pool, we would be able to do that. So these revolving funds help the town in perpetuity. So that's why I'm a big fan of these revolving loan funds, because not only do they help the building that's in front of us, they help buildings down the road, and we get to keep that money for a long, long time, as long as we continue to have buildings that need help. And the town that we're in, I promise you that'll almost always be the case.
A question, Matt. When we first talked about the first IRF loan, is that correct? IRF, right? Okay. The first time, there was a time that it had to be done in a time period, right? And then when we brought this other one up for the Wise building, that too had to be, the application had to be in at a certain time. Now, this application, I thought it, when it was explained to me before, that you had to, in the fiscal year and to the next year and to the next year. So are we not, I thought we had to wait a year from the first one. We haven't even approved, or the EDA has not gone through the function for the first loan. And here we are applying for another one.
I think the reason for that is that the funds are available like they've never been available before.
But you're saying they're available till the end of October?
That's when the next application is open. So that's
That's
when
when,
we would apply for the next revolving loan fund, because that's the next application period.
Could I make a point of order? Don't we need a motion for this discussion?
Yes. And a second.
I move that we adopt the resolution as presented for the $1 million in the industrial revitalization loan funds for 20 Market Street.
Second.
Now discussion. Tonight, we are going to meet in closed session to appoint our Economic Development Authority members. That, to me, is the purpose of the Economic Development Authority. In page 12 of the June 26 minutes, the town cannot lend money to a private entity per our attorney. Therefore, an EDA board needs to be established to oversee the funds and loan terms. He further went on to explain that in the long term, the EDA board will allow for additional funding avenues to stimulate the businesses in Ancock. On our website, when we put out a call for volunteers, excuse me, we're asking them under economic development, which is what they will be, economic development, to share your insights and experience in driving economic growth, attracting new businesses, and enhancing local opportunities. I would like to appoint the EDA, have them look at this, and then council can either agree or disagree. Wait, please.
Okay.
Because I think we're putting the cart before the horse. We have not yet started to receive, we have not yet even put the funds into the Littleton building. Is that correct? Because we don't have the EDA authority to do that yet.
right.
Well, we've gotten the contracts back from our attorney, and those will be scrubbed up and sent to DHCD. Once those get in their hands and they sign it, we have 18 months from that date to finish the project. The owners of the Littleton building have taken a line of credit to do the construction while they wait for us.
Right. Right. So I would like to see us appoint the EDA members, and then we could easily vote on this at the September meeting. And hopefully by that September meeting, we will know the purpose of the $1 million loan for 20 Market Street. Because at this point, we do not know. Granted, we didn't know for the Littleton either. But I think based upon some of the things that we've learned with the WISE building, it would be prudent and diligent of us to hold just a month, which will not affect the application. Is that correct?
It will affect the timing of the application.
Yes.
This is a very intense application. So what you would be asking the owners and developers to do is to fill out the application in hopes that you approve it next month.
At that point, would we know the purpose of the $1 million loan?
I can't speak to that. I'm not the developer. So I would think that within a few weeks, they've got to close up their planning grant. So I would think at that point, they would have a much clearer sense, but I can't speak to it perfectly.
Could we not have a work session to expedite the approval based upon what we would then know, more information?
We have no,
If that's your
Right.
choice, then of course.
we talk about doing due diligence, and here we are jumping again. We don't know what we're asking funds for.
Or are we applying for a loan to then lend out, or are we applying for a grant to lend that out?
It's a grant to lend that out with a fixed interest rate of 2.5%, and the term can be adjusted based on the project.
Can I comment that we're not asking for town money? Main Street is not asking for town money. All this does is allow the redevelopment of a building that needs help, as so many of our buildings do. To me, the use of the building is less important than that the building gets fixed up and there is someone willing to do that and find a use for it. I personally don't feel a need to know that use. I don't really,
The application requires it.
well, then it will
So
be
then I
done
would
by
think
that
we would
point.
need to know as well,
But
because we
as
are the
Matt-
applicants as well.
If you'd let me finish.
Please go.
Thank you. As Matt pointed out, the delay makes it impossible for the people to do the work to write the application.
Why?
Have you ever written an application such as this before?
I don't even know what the application looks like, but I do know what the requirements are. And part of the requirements is to say what it is. And what we are going to sit here and approve prior to have any knowledge.
We
So
didn't know that
We're
for the,
just asking for time, not for a yes or a no. We're asking for time.
The point, though, is that asking for time makes the answer no.
Doesn't.
Would you agree with that, Mr. Spock?
Yes, I would agree.
That, how so?
Because if you take a month out of the well, let me answer it this way. Maybe, because you would ask them to fill out the application without knowing if they have permission to fill out the application. It is a really complicated application. We filled out several. If you've been part of the DHCD program
have.
up in the Northeast,
Yes.
you know what that was like. That's what this is like. So that's the intensity that we'd be asking. So the resolution doesn't commit the town to do anything. It allows us to apply. If we
Right.
apply and council says, no, that purpose doesn't work for us, we don't think that would work in our town, we don't have to submit or we don't have to accept. So we at this point haven't committed anything of town resources, but you would be asking the applicant to put forward a lot of human resources
Right.
in
Grant.
hopes that you allow them to apply. So that's the only reason I would say it does probably lend itself to a no, because you know more than most about the intensity of those applications.
May I just say that in the Lilliston building, we were told that it would be apartments up and retail down. At least that was some idea of what it was going to be. And that was enough for us to say that that's important to our town. If you're asking me now to just go ahead and slide this through, I can't do it.
Okay, clarification, if I may. This is a preliminary, am I right in saying that this is a preliminary vote and that before anything is submitted, council will have another look at a more complete intent of what the plans are to be able to give a more informed decision?
I would say if that's your wish, then we can make that happen. We can make sure you get the vote before it's submitted, but that would have to be, I'm trying to think of the application date. I think it's 10/28. And at 10/28,
but I think there's a conflict and it has to be submitted by the 22nd because of that conflict, or their work has to be completed. Could I s-
By the 22nd,
Yeah.
so that I can get it in.
That's a Sunday.
Could I suggest that perhaps the owners are the ones that would speak to that sort of use? I can't recall another time we've told a business owner what they can do with their building.
Well, there's been a difference here.
We never gave them $1 million.
We never gave them $1 million.
And we're not giving them $1 million.
We're-
It's not town
We're
money.
signing the bottom line, and if it
We are
fails, it
processing
comes
the
back to
funds.
us, and we're in the
That's
real
all.
estate business.
I still think we should wait for the EDA to weigh in upon this issue. That's the purpose of our EDA. It's important also to note that on October 22nd of 2022, this planning grant for $63,000 was not on the agenda. It was in mayor's comments, and we voted 6-0 to allow the planning grant. I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm saying let's proceed with diligence and do our duty, our fiscal
Financial.
duty. And if we can schedule a meeting in 2 weeks, Mr. Spuck, do you think that would impact the process?
I'm not writing.
Can I just say that we will not have the EDA up and running in 2 weeks?
They're sworn in tonight. Right in the code.
They
it
won't
says
have
it.
bylaws. They won't know what they're doing in 2 weeks.
They can certainly look at this.
We don't know what we're doing tonight then.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
It would be, it would be, good people using good brains to
Yeah.
review something they've never seen before.
That they know nothing about.
Right.
the other question that I have about the EDA is their role to make decisions like what should we pursue, or to administer what has been pursued, secured, and begun to come back?
I think it's going to be dual directional. We'll have, let's say, for example, once the EDA gets up and running, and I see that the feds have an EDA grant for small rural communities that might fit. So, and say, does this make sense given what you see? I would apply. We would, of course, receive the grant, and then the funds would come back through them. All of this has to be approved by you step by step by step. So it'll be a bit of an arduous process. While it's a separate entity, it's under your purview. So nothing happens without you folks. So it's going to be a little painful as far as the process is concerned, but I would rather make it right than fast.
If we
Me too.
approve one of these grants and something doesn't work out, what is the town on the hook for?
At that point, because it's a matching grant, we would have, we'll use Lewiston as an example. They put in $1 million, the grant puts in $1 million, they've got a $2 million building. If they turn around and default, then we get a $2 million building, and we have whatever money they left, they paid before they went away. So I don't want to be in the real estate business.
It's not a matching grant.
You're putting resources in as a private developer, right?
Right, but we are not required by that grant to have it matched.
Okay,
The Williston building did not have $1 million.
right, but they put in 800 or 600?
But it is not a matching grant. That's nowhere in the application.
Well, but we would get a building of that value back.
But if they are defaulting, it's not the town defaulting
No.
or anything. It's purely them defaulting on an agreement with the town
With the
and
EDA.
they're with the EDA. And then therefore, we're essentially recovering the resources that we've lent out as we have been just granted that we've basically come upon.
Yeah,
this
we have a
extra $1 million.
primary lien in their facility until such time as the loan is fully paid.
Okay.
And to further add to what you're asking, Brendan, my thought is that then if there is a default, we own a building that we have to sell to recoup the money. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Do we have
That
to,
didn't cost the town anything.
do we have to sell it are we required to sell it to recoup all of the money?
Why
Or
would
do
you-
we
I
sell
would
it
have
at
to
market
find-
value
well,
and then we're left with that?
Well,
I think we had that
they sell it at
interpretation.
market value and they've invested $2 million and.
You got to have a buyer.
Yeah, I understand how the market works. What I'm trying to come up with is, I don't necessarily understand your question. If I get a $2 million building and I sell it for $2 million, I put $2 million in the bank where I only had $1 million before.
I'm saying the real estate market takes a hit. We've put forth this grant and loaned it out for $1 million. Something turns around and, it's not finished construction, doesn't work out. We can only sell it for, just throwing ideas out here, not realistic
Right.
figures, but we can only sell it for 500,000 after that. Does the town, other than having only having the 500,000 to reloan out, is there any requirement of the town to get the additional 500 that we couldn't
That's a
recoup?
great question. We do not have to replace Corpus.
Okay.
Not have to replace it.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add that I feel that if we don't utilize the grant money that's available, when it's available, which it's not going to be available forever, it's available now. If we don't utilize it, the town will never be redeveloped. And you will have this inventory of aging buildings with very limited usefulness, if any. So this is kind of a one-time opportunity. We either go for it or we lose the opportunity.
May I just say, I was under the impression, and again, I'm going to go back to what I said before, that the applications were on through one application per fiscal year, correct?
No, that's not the rule for DHCD. It's their application timeline that determines when we can apply.
Okay,
They did one at a time. So there wasn't going to be more than one application per
In process.
municipality per application period.
mhm,
So when Hancock gets one, they've had 3 application periods. We're going to apply in all 3, I hope. And the first one we were successful, the second we were not, the third I hope we are.
and there is no fourth?
I don't know. I
And,
don't know how much
and-
money is going to be left.
okay, but it seems to me that they would be able to say to you, if you don't get this application in today, it's going to be available next time.
Mavis, I can answer that. This
I
is-
didn't ask you.
well,
Because I do feel that there's a conflict of interest here. And this is on, but I'd rather just ask Matt what I'm asking him, please. Thank you.
I don't know the answer to that after this next October 28th application date. I don't know when or if there will be another one. I just don't know.
Okay.
I agree with Councilmember Holdren. You know, this is a great way to fill empty buildings downtown. I'm just saying,
Process.
we are appointing members to our EDA that are some of the best we could ever hope to get. I'm thrilled with the applications. Let's get their opinion. That's their purpose, is to spearhead economic development. And I don't think waiting a week, 2 weeks is going to impact negatively. I see you shaking your head, yes.
I'm listening.
I think if we could come back in a week, okay. But the longer you push this out, the less feasible it is that it will happen because of the time required to put into it. To
I'm
make
willing,
an application that we have a reasonable chance will succeed.
I'm willing to compromise and say a week and a half.
Don't you have to do an announcement
I have
public
to post it 7 days in advance.
7
Which
days?
is enough time.
For-
An emergency, but this isn't an emergency.
It's not an emergency.
So are you, who's
So-
in charge now? Is that you, Mavis?
She's vice mayor.
Is somebody going to call for the question?
I would like to, before we vote on it, I would like to suggest adding the word "that" in the middle paragraph,
Page.
page 21. It is projected that the buildings that will occupy,
That will occupy.
adding that between businesses and will,
Oh, this is the resolution you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
and then I'm ready to vote.
I think we may be getting more information from Matt here shortly.
No, that's actually helpful. You should know this. Hang on. This is new for me too. The ARPA money is what's funding this grant cycle, and it will go away after this year. Because it's just like we have to spend our money before X date. This grant is funded by ARPA money that will have to be spent by this date. So we'll have to get it into this cycle if you so choose. So can I ask a question about the EDA? If, when we appoint those folks tonight and. I
And they take the
call-
oath.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
call and congratulate them tomorrow. You would hope that we would meet, have them review this project, which would probably just be the planning grant, because there's no other data available,
Thank you.
and the terms of the loan, which I could use Lilliston's because that's much further along. The contracts are sort of written and it's the same loan size, same
Mhm.
interest rate and terms. So they could look at that and find out if that would be in the best interest of town. Then they come back to you, you have a special meeting, and then say yay or nay, and I'm making up a date right now by September 15th.
Can we
Yes.
vote on my motion? And then if that doesn't pass, somebody can craft a different motion?
I think it's up to the vice mayor at this point. Are you calling for a vote,
Yeah.
Mrs.?
Tell me, restate your motion, please.
My motion, as I recall it, was that we we adopt the resolution for allowing the town to apply for $1 million for the IRF fund for 20 Market Street. And
All-
Sarah seconded it.
Okay.
But is there a timeline there?
No,
That-
I
you just
didn't
wanna
have
go
a
down there?
timeline in my motion.
Okay. Mr. Berger, how say you?
Nay.
Yes.
Yay. No. Okay, it carries. Your motion carries. 4-2. Okay. Keep doing this court before the horse thing, and it's dangerous.
Alrighty. Okay, council discussion.
We're up to the conversation. So Eric, can you unmute your phone or yourself, please? And can you
Okay.
say something pithy?
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be with you tonight. Is everybody hearing me?
Do you want me to read the recommendation from the planning commission? Yeah. Okay.
Water.
Yeah, okay. Dear, August 15th, 2023, dear council members, at the August 7th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting at which a quorum was present, a motion was made and properly seconded to recommend to you Article 8A Cultural, Recreational, and Community Facilities Ordinance as it was originally adopted in September of 2008. As you know, in 2021, when the town code was put online using Municode, this ordinance was not included and therefore ceased to exist when the entire code was codified, which is why we must revisit the 2008 ordinance. The lease with the Friends of Anancock School began in August of 2007. The original ordinance was adopted by council in September of 2008. That ordinance allows for facilities for uses such as, but not limited to, performance and display of the visual and performing arts. We believe this ordinance alone allows for the Friends of Anancock School to build a facility and use it for performances. Suggesting that the ordinance allows only for a facility that can be used for performances, but does not actually allow for those performances is, in our opinion, not reasonable and does not meet the intent of the ordinance. Therefore, we do not believe the ordinance requires a special use permit requirement to fulfill the ordinance as written and adopted by your predecessors. In addition to those reasons, we believe that because the FOS was operating in good faith under the 2008 ordinance, it is reasonable to assume they did not need a permit for a project allowed by their lease and the ordinance put in place shortly after their lease with the town was formalized. They were operating under the 2008 ordinance, and with any operation in Virginia, subsequent changes to ordinances do not affect those operating under the previous version of the code. The purpose, as we understand it, for amending the ordinance with a special use permit is to add guidelines to the performance of the pavilion. The purpose of a performance venue is to perform. It is not a special use. We believe that FOS has been an asset to the town by bringing more art and artists to town. We believe they have transformed a town building and town property that the town did not have the resources to preserve or enhance. FOS has proven to be trustworthy and has added value to the community for over 15 years. The property has held many, many concerts and events over the years without a special use permit, which gives them good faith precedent. We believe a small formal group can help shape guidelines without such formality. The Planning Commission deliberated and voted 4-1 in favor of recommending the original ordinance to the Town Council for consideration, submitted by Planning Commission. Okay. All right. So that is the recommendation we've been given by the Planning Commission. And the next step would be to decide whether we want to go out. This is a recommendation. We have several options. We can go out. We would have to have a public hearing on this. And it's council's decision about whether we accept this recommendation in entirety, or we can add or modify it before but we have to have a public hearing. So is Eric on the phone here?
Yes, I am. Can you all hear me?
Well, Mr. Mayor, he sent an email saying that he would prefer not to provide legal guidance or to have a general discussion of these issues in open meeting, and would recommend the town council convene in closed meeting. Maybe that's why we're not getting him.
Well, I think
Legal guidance.
he's
Or to have
going
a general discussion of these issues in
Oh.
open meeting. And would recommend
My echo.
He's going to give us procedural guidance.
Maybe that's why we're not getting
Is
him.
that your phone?
No, it's her.
No,
It's
it's the
been-
lag in the.
It's the same thing that happened to me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, but we got an echo.
No, it's the lag.
It's the same thing that happened to me.
Repeating what you said.
I know. Eric, can you hear us? We heard him for a
Okay,
second.
can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me now?
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, try, you turn off the mics, you mean?
Can he type something to you that you can read
Can you hear me now?
from the Zoom?
Oh, okay. Well, try, you turn off the mics, you mean?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. How? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the answer.
I'm having a hard time hearing. I can't hear the meeting because the video feed is muted. Okay, so you can hear me? I town members of council, I can't hear what's going on in the council chambers. For the feed is muted. So I'm having a hard time knowing when I should speak and when I shouldn't. I'm sorry.
That's what I'm gonna say, see if I can stick them on my cell phone.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question while we're waiting?
Sure, yeah, sure.
Okay, I understood you to say that this is council discussion tonight.
Yes.
And then it will go out for public comment.
Well, it would, the planning commission is given us a recommendation to proceed. We need, the planning commission has to have a public hearing on that recommendation. We can modify that recommendation if we want to.
So then the
Yeah.
steps would be discussion tonight, no vote, discussion.
Yes, we're not, can't vote on anything. We haven't had a public hearing.
Public hearing, then what's the next step
Then we vote at a meeting. Yeah.
at the council meeting?
Yeah, and Eric has suggested that we have a separate public hearing for the planning commission by itself. Yeah.
Okay.
Hearing with the planning commission by itself, not a joint, just the planning commission. He's going to explain that if he ever gets on here.
So Eric, can you jump in or no?
Can you hear me?
Everything's got to get learned one way or another, right, folks? Now, hold on. That's not me, that's you.
I am going to sign off and then sign on.
All right, I'm gonna try. I'm about to end that meeting.
Are you there?
There you
Can anyone hear me at all?
People on the Zoom can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna just sign off this Zoom and try to sign on with my phone. Never mind.
He said he might call it on his cell rather than trying to do it via.
Matt, are you there? Hello? Can anybody on the Zoom hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You're on the Zoom.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just exited the Zoom on my computer and just tried to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just exited the Zoom on my computer and just tried to do it. Okay. All right. I just exited the Zoom on my computer and just tried to do it. Okay. All right. I just exited.
Want me to put him on speaker up in front of you? All right. You don't want to get back on the meeting? Try one more time?
It's a seventh inning stretch.
This is.
Let's see what happens. Can you hear us?
I can hear you perfectly. I'm sorry about that incessant loop. I don't know what was causing it. I was trying to, I was on with the computer, then I was on the phone, and neither one of them seemed to work. So I'm sorry.
All right, as we talked earlier, we were going to discuss the procedural, the way we would move forward with this, this issue. Can you recap that for us? In your opinion, what's the best way to proceed?
Well, it seems to me in reviewing the original, well, first to respond to the Planning Commission's recommendation. What they recommend is not altogether unreasonable, but what I would recommend is that town council revisit the notion of an ordinance providing for a special use permit for the pavilion, for the entertainment venue use, essentially. And I think that was on the table before, and when it was on the table, the Friends of the School submitted proposed draft guidelines that it's my understanding that they submitted those with the idea that those would be conditions that they could live with if they were to be imposed under a special use permit, if and when it was applied for and assuming it was approved with those conditions. It's my understanding also that the organization submitted a version of conditions that they preferred, and in looking at both of those draft conditions, they're not all that different. And it's my view. I certainly understand that the town council and the planning commission and the Friends of the School and the organization are, everybody's been working on this for over a year and talking about it probably for even longer than that. And I understand that there's a desire to just get this done one way or the other. And I think that there is a path forward for that. And I would suggest that that the FOS and the organization, if they're working in good faith, and I have to assume that they are not far apart at all in the conditions that both of them could live with. The conditions, that draft conditions that they each individually submitted are not far apart at all. And in fact, the organization said that their conditions were largely based in part on the FOS guidelines. So the major difference is how they measure the noise, okay, the noise guidelines. And the FOS guidelines submitted that they would make an effort to control the level of noise based upon the wattage that was utilized for amplified musical and other performances, meaning they would put a limit of no more than, an amplified musical performance in which more than 2 speakers of no more than 1,000 watts per channel are used, in no case greater than 15,000 in total watts. A typical touring band uses 80 and 400,000 watts. So they would base it upon the wattage of the equipment utilized for amplification of the sound, the music or the performance or what have you. And I would say that's not an unreasonable way to do it. Certainly it's objective. Certainly it can be resolved ahead of time in the planning for each individual event, meaning that whoever is going to be performing is going to have to submit what kind of equipment they're going to be using, or perhaps the FOS installs that particular equipment. It would be compliant with that kind of a standard, and then it's set forth and it's approved. Now, the organization submitted that they would prefer that the sound be controlled by measuring the decibels. And that's also not an unreasonable way to do it. And a lot of
enforce their noise ordinance or have provisions in their noise ordinances based upon decibel measurement and based upon sound metering that measures the decibels that are emitted from various sounds. And that can be objective too. My only problem with that is that the decibel metering, the sound metering devices that measure the decibels, are highly sensitive and can register different measurements from different locations, different environmental conditions, and also, like a loud motorcycle driving by could violate whatever the decibel limit is, but it's over it and gone in an instant. And versus a loud cheering sustained sound, which somebody might perceive as loud for whatever reason. And I'm not an audiologist or a sound engineer or anything, but it's my experience that that can trigger that may not trigger the decibel meter. So it may be that what I would suggest you consider is maybe the guidelines, and if you go this way, the guidelines could have both in there, meaning you would have a way to impose prior restrictions on the kind of equipment to try to limit the sound. And then as an enforcement mechanism, you could say that if there's a complaint about the noise, that the Hancock Police Department can carry these decibel metering devices and can measure the sound from a designated spot. And if a measurement is above a certain level, then the event organizer is told to turn it down, and they perhaps get a warning letter. And then maybe if they get 2 warning letters in a season, that might trigger a notice of violation. That way you would have a way to govern it from the beginning before events even occur, and then you would have an enforcement mechanism, some sort of belt and suspenders approach to governing the level of sound. I would suggest that could be incorporated into conditions imposed via a special use permit. The reason I recommend a special use permit be utilized for this kind of thing is that other than a by right use, if the town council approves an ordinance with a special use permit, you have the ability to impose conditions like this. If you just make it a by right use, as the 2008 ordinance would do, then you don't have any real control over a given use or a way to impose conditions upon those uses. By right uses are fine in most cases, and that's the way the 2008 ordinance was in place. That's how it existed up until the recodification in 2021. And so it did exist that way for quite some time. And so it is not unreasonable, or it's not unreasonable to say that's a good way and fair way to do it. But I think given all the concerns with the FOS plans and the event in the pavilion and everything, the event venue, I would suggest that you consider a version of the ordinance that would impose a special use permit provision for these kinds of things. I provided Mr. Spuck with a draft for the town council's consideration. I would suggest, and I discussed this with Matt, I would suggest that a plan for further consideration and adoption, if the town council chooses, could be stipulated so that you could have an ultimate vote on this kind of with the public hearings and everything that's necessary under the Code of Virginia. You could be poised and prepared to vote ultimately on the ordinance as early as November, because I would recommend that the Planning Commission and the Town Council have separate public hearings. But and I know that seems like just another few months and another long delay, but at least we look, the two organizations look like they're pretty close together. If we can follow a process that's open and regular and provides a ultimate decision point, which I think we can, then then town council will have that certainty, as will the Friends of an Hancock School and as will the org organization. And then, we'll see, but nobody, it would be my goal to make sure that nobody could say that the final process was not open and compliant with the code and allowed people to participate fully. And that's what I would like to advise for. Now, if you want to hear about other more detailed guidance, I would recommend we go into closed session, or depending on what questions you have, we could go into closed session. I'm happy to answer what questions I think I can in open session, but I think we could have a path forward that would allow you to make a decision fairly soon, and avoid much of the problems that might arise if you go precipitously into some other direction. But happy to answer any questions if I can.
So your recommendation would be, you've given us some language to add a special use permit to the recommendation from the Planning Commission, correct?
Well, what I would suggest is that an ordinance amendment could be the town council. I think Matt is distributing the draft ordinance that I provided to him, and that is a red line of the existing ordinance that you have on the books now, and incorporating the 2008 ordinance with further amendments to it. Okay. And then this revision provides for a special exception process for outdoor performing arts, such as concerts, plays, and other musical or theatrical performances, outdoor festivals, performance venue, firework displays by licensed operators, and wireless communication facilities. So that approval process would be in place. Then, when Friends of the Hancock
Hold on,
School-
so we'd have to go to a public hearing with the Planning Commission with that, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so-
you would.
so the
And-
next
but
step
you
would be-
can-
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The next step would be to schedule a public hearing with the Planning Commission with their recommendation that we've modified. Is that correct?
Well, I think it's town council directing the
Right.
Planning Commission to conduct a public hearing on the ordinance as directed by the town council.
Okay.
And Planning Commission could have their public hearing on what you have before you. And they can vote to recommend it, or they can vote to not recommend it, but that doesn't mean that town council is beholden to that. Town council can then have its own public hearing and move forward and adopt the ordinance if it's town council's pleasure. Then eventually, if FOS wanted to apply for a special use permit under the new ordinance, assuming it was approved, then they could do that when they're ready.
Okay.
And then that SUP application would be subject to consideration by Planning Commission, consideration by town council, and approval subject to conditions if town council thought they would be necessary. But at the same time, I'm suggesting also that town council consider adopting, if you choose to go in this direction, that at the same time that this ordinance amendment would be approved, if it is, then I would suggest town council could pass a resolution stipulating what kinds of conditions town council would prefer to see if such a special use permit application were to be submitted in the future. So you would basically be putting a marker down for all concerned about what the conditions would be that town council would expect to be agreed to if an application were submitted.
Okay, okay, questions? Anybody?
Isn't there a redundancy in having another planning commission meeting on this? It's, I mean, because they gave us their recommendation, and now we're adding to it to a special use permit. It's going to go back to them, and for what purpose?
I discussed this with Eric. Eric and I had a discussion with this earlier. And Eric, did you hear her comment?
Yes, I did.
And you're just trying to achieve more transparency and more chance for public input, correct? Or?
Yeah, ultimately, yes, sir. Ultimately, that's my goal, is to to send it back to the planning commission so everybody is clear about what town council is directing the planning commission to consider. You'd be essentially responding to their recommendation and redirecting the planning commission to have a public hearing on what you're directing them to have a public hearing on, which if it's town council's will, would be the recommendation before you to amend the existing ordinance to incorporate certain provisions of the 2008 ordinance with amendments to allow for a special use permit to be required for such uses.
Okay, Joey. Just shout real loud.
Can you hear me, Mr. Gregory?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, worst case scenario, this came out of the planning commission and I was not in attendance at the meeting. Somebody clarify what the vote was without the SUP?
4-1.
4-1 without the SUP. Worst case scenario, what if it goes back to planning commission and they will not approve an SUP?
We ignore them.
Well, I'm asking this.
Well,
He's already said that.
That's what, that's what.
Yeah.
That's why I
Essentially,
said
to answer your question, essentially, Mayor Foskey is correct. The town council is not required to comply with a recommendation from the planning commission. The planning commission's recommendation is just that, a recommendation. So if planning commission refuses to take action to recommend what town council is asking them to take action on, then town council can just say, well, we're going to adopt the ordinance as you wish. But nobody could then say that the planning commission did not act on it and that it didn't go through the proper processes, right?
Thank you for clarifying.
Hey, what is the Western you told me that I couldn't get that night?
The warrant?
The warrant.
Cindy.
Okay. That was it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I should start with right now.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Such that it doesn't continue for another 2 to 3 months. Following every step that you recommend, but not waiting the time periods in between monthly meetings.
As long that's possible, as long as the advertising requirements for a zoning ordinance were complied with for both the planning commission and town council. So you basically you would have to send this back to planning commission. They would have to advertise the zoning ordinance amendment, have a public for 2 weeks, have a public hearing, take action. Then it would come back up to town council. Town council would then have to advertise the zoning ordinance for 2 weeks and then schedule a public hearing, conduct the public hearing and take action. So you're looking at a minimum of, 4 to 6 weeks probably. So that pushes you into mid-October. I think that would probably be the earliest you could get it done, unless you held a joint public hearing, but I would not recommend that in this case.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any further questions?
Just an observation that we couldn't do the advertising for the public hearing at the regular September Planning Commission meeting, but there isn't one anyway because
could
it's
schedule
Labor
one.
Day.
We could schedule. a
So it
special
would
meeting.
the next scheduled Planning Commission meeting is the 2nd of October. So
We can have a special meeting in September.
So that's what I'm getting to is that
Yeah.
it's looking as though that we're trying to get that set up.
Yeah, and we could schedule it mid-September. It would give us enough time to advertise. It turns out that when they apply for the special use permit, that has to be at a regularly scheduled town council meeting. So we can't have a special meeting for that. I looked at the ordinance, it says that specifically. Is that correct? Greg? Eric?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So
So you mean an SUP application itself?
the public hearing has to be at a regularly scheduled council meeting. Yeah, that's what it says in our ordinance. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't say- Yeah, I don't know what that means. You can look at it and tell us later. We don't need to dwell on that now. Okay.
Understood.
Okay, so I guess it's up to council to decide. Does everybody have any other questions from the attorney here? Any? We can always, All right. Okay, well, you're welcome to listen in for a discussion if you want to, yeah. All right, so does anybody want to read, can somebody read the, Matt, could you read what he's he's proposed?
The new one?
The addition that he's proposed to the, to the planning, to the change in the planning commission's recommendation. Yeah, I'd just like to read it out for the council, everybody.
Yeah, I haven't stapled them yet, so. Okay.
I'd rather have it unstapled than not have it.
Yes.
Are these? No, I think it's, I just gave you one set. You gave Fletcher part of one set.
Oh, okay.
This is a whole
That's the
set.
whole set.
That's a whole set. Set.
4 pages.
One, two,
Okay, that one's Cindy's.
Cindy. And
All right.
here's yours, Fletcher.
All right, so.
So how does this differ from the original?
From the one.
The changes, there's markup starting on the second page.
Right, on 38-234, the first paragraph reads, "The Cultural, Recreational, and Community Facilities District is composed of areas within the town of Anacog which are deemed to be appropriate locations for such uses permitted." This is new, or by special use permit subject to conditions as provided herein. The rest remains the same. In 38-25, he added the word indoor in section 1. In section 3, he removed the word festivals. Section 236 is special exemptions. This is the section for special use permit. Says the following uses shall be permitted in cultural, recreational, and community facilities districts, subject to all of the requirements of this chapter and only upon obtaining a special use permit from town council. 1 is outdoor performing arts such as concerts, plays, and other musical or theatrical performances. 2 is performance venue. 3 is outdoor festivals. 4 is fireworks by licensed operators. And 5 is wireless community facilities. 237 is uses not permitted. And those include smoking, vaping, open fires, or weapons on the property, camping, or commercial activities without a permit. And then the rest is setback regulations and height regulations that remain the same as the 2008 ordinance.
The question, the
You
2008.
should ask Eric. He
No,
wrote this.
no, I just want to, it's just a question. The 2008 ordinance had height requirements for,
Yes, for auxiliary building or accessory buildings, yeah, it had setback and height requirements.
Was
Those are
it
in a
there?
lot of the codes.
okay.
So why is it still called Parks and Open Space District?
Added,
It's not.
it's part of the same conversation, page 2 in the middle.
Oh, I see,
Article
okay.
8A.
Oh, it's okay. So the first
Um,
part.
In your packet, you could, it's easy to compare from page 23.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Okay.
Question on page 3, 38-237, uses not permitted. The following uses are strictly forbidden in the and no permit is possible. In the who? Thank you.
Eric, you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, you've taken the old the ordinance that was recommended by the planning commission and given us the corrections that we just went over, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is what this was the old 2008 version with these additions.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Is everybody?
Yeah, with further amendments
Okay.
to provide for the SUP.
All the
process.
amendments that are outlined. So there are basically only four changes, really, correct? Yeah. Well,
Yeah, the changes are fairly minor.
yeah.
Provides for the cultural, recreation, and community facilities use.
Right.
And then there's principal permitted uses in section 38-235. And then but what you're really concerned with, I think, are is section 38-236, which provides for outdoor performing arts are subject to a special exception process.
Correct. All right. Okay. All right.
Can I-
Okay, comments from council? Yeah.
I have a question. I have a question about section 237, uses not permitted. Is it necessary to leave smoking in there since I thought that was?
That's a policy of the school.
I
Yeah.
thought it was state law.
That's in our lease.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a vestige of the old ordinance. I think I'd probably strike subsection 1 and 237.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, Mr. Gregory, on 236 special exemptions. It looks to me like 24 fireworks, 25 wireless communication. But those numbers are crossed out. Does that mean they're not permitted or were they?
They're changing from numbers 2 and 3 to numbers 4 and 5.
Yeah.
That's correct.
All right. Comments on this addition? Are we, is this council?
And I will note, to Mayor Foskey and members of town council, the lawyer for the organization, the ORG, is on the meeting, and I have sent to her this draft. So she's aware of this, and I just want you all to know that. So they have the opportunity to review this, and that it's in their hands, and they're listening to this discussion. So they just so you know.
Okay. All right. Council comments. So we need to, council needs to decide, what they want to recommend. First of all, are we going to go back to the planning commission for, he's recommended a public hearing just for the planning commission to hear this? Or is that okay with everybody?
Just for the sake of transparency, it seems like a lot to go through when we've been through it. And planning commission is, I think, would be throwing their hands up to say, you're asking me to do what I just did, and now you want to put this in here. And why bother? You know what?
That may, if I can respond to that, Mayor Foskey, if you like.
Yeah, certainly.
That may be the case, but nevertheless, I think town council would be protecting the process by directing the planning commission to conduct a public hearing on this draft ordinance, if it be town council's will to send it to them, and directing them to do it. And they can conduct a public hearing, they can have discussion, they can vote to not recommend it back to town council, but at least they've done what you've required them to do, and then town council can conduct its own public hearing, and if it's the town council's will, move forward with adoption. And then I would suggest that would at least make sure that nobody could contend that the statutory process was not followed, and that's what I'm trying to make sure that happens.
Thank you.
So if we don't follow the statutory process, then we're opening ourselves up to a problem in the future.
Potentially.
Yeah, and if we follow the process, then it's more likely that even though we still could have an issue, it's more likely that it would be we would prevail. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Possibly. I don't know. We got to follow the process. Yeah, I understand. So the process is extremely important in this. Yes. Okay.
I would suggest.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Thank you. So we need to decide how we want to move forward here.
So schedule a public here.
And we can do that as a special, you can have a special meeting, probably in whatever, Matt, whatever we can get planning commission
I
together.
can put a calendar together to show what would be the most expedient way to do this with
Right.
notification requirements.
Right. Okay. But we need,
Based upon Mr. Gregory's recommendation.
Yes.
right. So the question, okay, so are we agreed that we're going to send this back to the planning commission and they're going to we're going to send something back to them and then they're going to have their own public hearing. Is that agreed?
Correct.
Okay, well, then my next question is what version do we want to send them? They have to have a public hearing regardless. So are we going to send them the modified that we just discussed, we read? We need council comments on that.
I got a question. So we are potentially going to modify this and send it back to the planning commission. It makes sense to me that the planning commission needs to know what they're doing a little bit on that. Do they have a meeting first to discuss what has been sent back and then a public hearing for them to determine that what they're presenting is what they're up for presenting?
Well, I think we could send them this information tomorrow, our language. They have a couple weeks to look at it. Yeah, I mean, the language can go, we're going to adopt the language tonight. We just read it out. So, yeah, right. I mean,
So the changes are just what's underlined.
yes,
in
yes,
here.
yes.
I mean, if you're having a public hearing about it, you want to make sure that that's something the planning commission is choosing to do.
Well,
So you would have to have a meeting, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but you have to have a meeting of the planning commission to agree for the planning commission to have a public hearing.
And the
Is that-
chairman just left because he said,
As I understood, Mr. Gregory, we can direct the planning commission to
I,
have a public hearing on this, on what we send them.
I think out of respect to the volunteers of the planning commission and the hard work they do, that we need to be careful on how much we direct them to do something.
Are you still there, Eric?
Yeah.
Did he hear his comment that, do we have the right to tell the planning commission to have a public hearing?
Yes.
We do. Okay. All right. All right.
I just think we need to think about the relationship there and make sure that we still have a group of volunteers who are willing to put in the hard work that they do to then get the feedback from us that whatever they're doing needs to change, and then they're directed to do something. I just think we need to think about that.
because they've already made their recommendation. They've already been through this 100 times and they've been through it and they've made their recommendation. Well, okay, maybe I exaggerated a little bit, but they've been through it.
I believe that the.
And I believe that the planning commission did not adopt the recommendation of town council in the first go round. Is that correct? Matt?
I think planning commission took the ordinance that had the special use permit, and then after their deliberation and their vote, they redacted those two because they believe what they presented forward. So yes, they started with what you presented and they redacted the two clauses.
I would think the planning commission, based upon our attorney's interpretation, might look at this with different eyes upon it now, I would think.
Well, the other fact is the planning commission has not had a public hearing, so they haven't had any public weigh in on this. So they're supposed to wait for the public to weigh in on it to make their decision. So I don't think there's a problem with, they're going to have a planning commission. They're going to have they've already recommended to us that we go out for a hearing with their recommendation. So we're just modifying it. And if they don't, they could still disagree with our modification, but they still have to have a public hearing. So I understand your concern, but there
The
has to
uses
be a
of the
public
word
hearing.
like ignore and do those
Well,
sort of
I
things
know
don't
that. I'm just-
go
I-
to
It's happened
inter-department
before.
workings.
We've gotten recommendations from the planning commission that we have not followed. And I was on the planning commission for, 15 or 20 years, and it's frustrating, but that's unfortunately how it works. Yeah. But they still have to have a public hearing. So, and I think they should wait and have the public hearing, and then they can make their decision. If they want to recommend the same thing back to us, that's their right. And we have the right to listen to it. And then if we don't agree with them, we're the elected officials. We have the right to do that. So I understand your concerns. And I talked with Eric a long time about why we need to have another hearing. I wasn't too gung ho about that at first, but we normally have joint public hearings, but this is a pretty sensitive subject. So let's continue on.
So
Yeah.
another question, in light of your comment, Brandon, about giving the planning commission an opportunity to discuss it and figure out what they're going to present at a public hearing, what kind of lead time would that meeting require with another public hearing meeting to follow it?
Well, that's going to be a waste of time because they're not going to, that one would be, I think. I mean,
But if they want to, if they receive this, that
Right.
we're
right.
saying, please consider, and they prefer to stick with what they voted on previously,
Right.
then what they would be presenting at the public hearing would change.
Right. It
Be
would,
what they wanted.
So,
yeah.
so it seems to me that they need an opportunity to have a conversation to determine what they propose at the public hearing to be responded to.
That's not what, Eric, are you hearing what she's saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I would suggest that the town council can direct the planning commission to consider what town council is handing down to it and conduct a public hearing thereon. Then they can make a recommendation. They may recommend against it, but at
Okay.
least they will have had the public hearing on what town council asked them to do. And they can make a recommendation totally contrary to that. They could recommend against it and resubmit the letter that they just submitted, or resubmit the 2008 ordinance. But they will have had a public hearing on what you've asked them to have a public hearing on, or directed them to have a public hearing on, and then town council can have its public hearing and move forward with action.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Is that answered your question? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on this?
I'd like to move that we forward the recommended ordinance with the special use permit language as it's been presented to us tonight, drafted by our attorney, with the additional redaction of number 1 under section 38-237, that we forward this to the planning commission for their consideration and a public hearing.
Is there a second to that motion?
I have a question.
I do too.
Okay.
We're gonna have a
We need a second. We can't
If you have a
discuss it.
second, or we're not going to do it.
I'll second that.
Second, okay, discussion? Okay.
Yes. Well, I'll hold. Somebody
Okay,
else had one.
So on the 38-237, are you saying take out the whole paragraph? Or
No, just number 1, which,
Not the smoking?
yeah, that's,
But weapons too? You're going to allow weapons?
No, no.
Oh, yeah, you didn't see there. Yeah, you didn't.
I think our attorney can speak to that.
Are you there, Eric? Eric?
Yes, sir.
There was weapons was in that line about the smoking, vaping, open fires or weapons. We're not crazy about, is that?
That means they're not alive.
I think you could probably address that by other means, but if you're concerned, you could just leave in the weapons.
Well, isn't that,
The whole thing.
I
the
don't
whole
think having a weapon on on the school premises would be permitted by law anyway. But
school.
you could say that even though it's not a functioning school, or you could easily put that in special conditions, or you could just say that weapons are not allowed on the property.
Cindy, may I ask you if you're questioning smoking because it's not permitted anywhere in any public building right now. So, but this is a use not permitted and smoking is included. This sounds like one of those things where we were talking before that you put it in there just in case you need it.
I don't
Like
think-
the same thing when you were talking.
And
about-
To me,
it's
it's
talking about-
extraneous.
It's talking
It's
about
just
the
not needed.
grounds
It is
too.
extraneous,
Yeah,
but
it's talking
it's
about
there.
outdoor.
I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, just leave it in.
Yeah.
Don't
Okay.
change it.
If you
Yeah.
take one
Okay,
line at one
I'll
thing
change
out,
my
you gotta-
motion. We can
Okay.
leave it in.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You
Okay,
have to do
I have
it
a
all.
question.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Gregory, this was listed on the agenda tonight under council discussion. Are you comfortable we're taking a vote on it?
Well,
She's made a motion.
To send it to the planning commission.
You are not, you are not prohibited from taking
Okay.
an action on this to direct it down back to the planning commission. I don't know of anything that prohibits you from taking action on something that's before you for discussion like this.
We're not
In this-
voting on an ordinance.
What do you mean by like this?
Well, you can, if something else were on for discussion, it doesn't necessarily need to be on your agenda as a specifically noted as an action item for you to take action on it.
Thank you.
So we're not voting on any ordinance, correct? Yeah.
Right.
Right, okay, yeah.
We're
yeah.
just voting to send it to
Send
planning.
it, yeah, right. We're voting to send it, the language to the planning commission. All right. So any further discussion on this? Want a roll call vote on this?
Councilmember Holden,
Aye.
Maria,
Aye.
Councilmember Knopf,
Aye.
Councilmember Oswald.
Aye.
And so, okay, thank you, Eric. I think we're set.
Okay.
All right, we'll be back with you. There's further stuff to come. Yeah. Matt, timing
You
for
all
this?
need to stick around for the rest of the meeting?
I don't, no, not unless you're really bored.
I'm good. So
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
All right.
Thank
All
you.
right,
We
thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Okay. Timing for the planning commission, can we give them, let them know? Can we send that
Yeah,
information?
Let me get a calendar in front of me and find out what my notification requirements are and what days of the week things can happen and
Right.
all of that. So I'll put that together first thing in the morning and shoot you all a calendar.
And can you forward the recommendation to the planning commission tomorrow? So they have 2
Oh,
weeks to look at it?
absolutely.
Yeah, right. Okay, the new language. Okay. I mean, I don't think it's, they probably know it's coming. All right. Okay, public comment.
Go back to my budget.
Okay, yeah, I'll get my mic back. Public comment now. I think as of, I discussed last meeting, we seem to have like a 2.5 minute time thing. It seemed like that was a little bit too 3 minutes. So we're gonna, if the council's all right with this, we're gonna do a 3 minute, Matt's gonna give me a heads up at 3 minutes, and then at 3.5 minutes, we're gonna cut the, so you get an extra 30 seconds here. Matt, did you hear me about the timing?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, we're gonna,
2.5 minutes. I'm gonna-
no, 3 minutes, and then we're getting 3 minutes, and then we'll give them another 30 seconds.
Oh, so they got 3.
They're gonna have 3.5 minutes, yeah. Okay, we don't have that. We'll get through it quickly. Janet Rochester? Possibly 30 minutes. I think.
I'm Janet Rochester, 39 King Street. Mr. Mayor, Town Council members, you have the recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding the proposed ordinance for historic and Hancock School. I ask that you approve it as presented with no further conditions or restrictions. Well, that's moot now, but regarding details of the proposed ordinance, the community has already spoken. Multiple meetings preceded the decision to convert the school into a cultural and community center. Additional meetings of the Planning Commission and residents provided all interested parties opportunities to share their opinions. Early in 2016, the Town Council reviewed the status of the school and decided to make no changes. I was living here then, as I do now, and I attended many of these meetings. The town's failure to post the original ordinance does not justify changing the ordinance now. 16 years ago, an Hancock Town Council voted unanimously to entrust the stewardship of the largest building and the last significant public open space in town to a group of volunteers. These volunteers, their employees, and many other volunteers, using grants and donor funding and hundreds of hours of labor, have changed a rundown, shabby building into a thriving arts community with 23 tenants happy to be there. They have installed a children's playground, a disc golf course, and worked with the master naturalists to make a nature trail, all of which are in regular use. They have enhanced the value of this town asset, as demonstrated by 2 recent awards for the school as an art gallery and the over 10,000 visitors who came through the doors in 2022. It has been suggested that the lease signed in 2005 was designed for the school to fail. That may or not be true. We know that there were people then, as there are now, who have a different idea of what the school should be. Where is their business plan? All we have heard is speculation. The Friends of an Ancock School has faithfully executed the trust you placed in them for 16 years. Changing the rules at this point would be unjust. To do so at the instigation of a group that has been antagonistic from the start and that is taking advantage of the town's failure would be a travesty.
Hayden Rochester.
Hayden Rochester, 39 King Street. On September 22nd, 2008, Town Council unanimously passed an ordinance for a cultural, recreational, and community facilities district for the Onancock School property. In October 2008, the Accomack County Planning Department updated the zoning map. Nobody noticed that the zoning description was never posted to MuniCode, a private contractor that maintains the town's ordinances. For 13 years, the Friends of Onancock School operated the historic Onancock School, believing the 2008 approved zoning remained in effect. On January 25th, 2021, a resolution was proposed to Town Council to make official various updates and corrections made by MuniCode. In discussion, Councilmember Oswald asked if all the changes since 2008 were included. Town staff assured her that they had sent all approved code changes to MuniCode. Council approved the resolution 6-0. At that moment, the ordinance FOS had been relying on for 13 years disappeared. Nobody informed SOS. On March 28, 2022, Council unanimously approved an FOS request to build a performance pavilion. Nobody pointed out that the January 2021 resolution had caused the school property to revert to parks and open spaces, a zoning under which a pavilion would not be usable. Before and during pavilion construction, FOS consulted often with the town manager, mayor, and Accomack County building and environmental officials. Nobody told FOS that the 2008 zoning ordinance did not exist. On December 27th, 2022, I noticed that the town zoning map had a unique district for the HOS property that was not shown on the MuniCode website. So I emailed the town manager. He replied that he would look into it. From January through April 2023, FOS held 5 meetings with concerned citizens and 2 council work sessions. At no point did anyone say that the 2008 zoning ordinance had been erased by council action 2021. On June 26th town council meeting, I read the original text of the 2008 ordinance. Nobody present mentioned that this ordinance was no longer valid. On July 24th, a commenter stated that the 2008 ordinance had been deleted in January 2021. That was news to me, the FOS board, our tenants who rely on that ordinance to conduct business, our donors, other supporters of the pavilion, and probably almost everyone else present. At the August 7th Planning Commission meeting, members voted to recommend restoring the 2008 ordinance, which is the only responsible remedy. The ordinance disappeared due to a clerical error. Town council never voted to eliminate it, modify it, or replace it with something else. Since 2008, FOS has trusted Onancock to do the right thing. We are trusting the town to do the right thing now and restore the original 2008 ordinance. To open the ordinance up for revision and modification at this time is a gross betrayal of that trust. FOS accepted donations and grants for the pavilion, believing we had the right to operate it successfully, but we don't. That situation is the fault of the town of Onancock, not FOS. We've spent more than $100,000 for something that may never be used, and soon we may be forced to spend tens of thousands more to restore the pavilion site. Who's going to compensate our donors and grantors for that?
Margie Lavender.
Margie Labadie, 24 Kerr Street. All I want to do is just offer my support for everyone in FOS who has been working so hard to make the school successful, to keep the school successful, and to allow the town to do the things that it wants to do by having a pavilion and having a wonderful school. I sat in my studio yesterday afternoon that's a Sunday, right? On a Sunday. And behind me in the building, there was a baby shower going on for someone in the community. I'm an artist working in my studio, and it was a wonderful feeling to be able to have that space, to be able to afford that space, and to know that there's a community there. And then while I was there, an event was taking place also in the back where a movie was being shown for the community. What a great use of this space. What a shame it would be to have it go away because ordinances weren't followed, because something got omitted some time back that should just be put back in place. Please come together and make this work. Thank you.
Pat Fleck.
Hi there, I'm Pat Fleck. I live at 19398 Harris Lane. And I just wanted to address comments that were made at the last town council meeting regarding Article 9. The comment was made regarding, oops, let me get my, sorry.
It's the old number.
I'm sorry? Okay. So the facilities for, well, let me just go here. That there are two important issues. First, the mention of community is written repeatedly in Article 9. Community specifically means the townsfolk of Onancock proper. I looked at Article 9, I couldn't find that. I saw facilities for cultural, recreational, social, and community uses, such as, but not limited to, and it went on. There is no definition of community in Article 9. And my definition of community for Onancock is not something that ends at the town limits. I am just outside the town limits in a neighborhood that's ironically called Onancock proper. It's true. I think community includes everyone in the Onancock zip code. We volunteer, we participate, we use the stores, we eat here, we contribute to the community. What happens in the town affects us just as well. We are stakeholders in this town. There is also a reference made to section 24-57C, outdoor recreational use, which are to be temporary. Well, if you read it, it actually says temporary outdoor uses such as sports tournaments, art shows, festivals, weddings. Those are temporary. Those are things that happen in an afternoon, a weekend. The beginning of of C says outdoor recreational uses, including but not limited to sports fields, courts, playgrounds, walking, hiking, and fitness trails. We have a playground that is a permanent structure. We have a permanent structure. So I find that that was very misleading, the interpretation of Article 9. Also mentioned by that the speaker was the effect on wildlife. And I would just like to have that clarified for me. I'd like to see some evidence to support that. Do we really know what effect on wildlife there's been due to the construction of the pavilion? I guess my point here, because we've all seen this and gone over this a bazillion times, is that people need to look at these things for themselves and make their own judgment. We can't rely on other people to interpret these for us for themselves. We can't have other people interpreting it. We have to look at it and make a reasonable decision on our own. That's it. And I'm going to end there because no, I'm going to go on for just a second about community. I lived in an area, I come from New York, in case you couldn't tell by the accent, and we had an incorporated village of Farmingdale and the rest of Farmingdale. I have never heard, and nor did I hear here prior to, I guess, this past year, that you live in the zip code, but you're not in the town. When I lived in Farmingdale, I did not live in the incorporated village, and there was never, ever a distinction. I never felt that I was other because I was not in the incorporated village. And all of a sudden, when we've been coming here for almost 20 years and nobody ever made this distinction before, I am part of the community. And as are people who live in deep.
Time's up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Casey Greer.
Casey Greer, 74 Market Street. I'm going to talk about something completely different. I bet you'll be relieved. I'm going to talk about the Onancock Economic Development Authority. It has the potential to be such a powerful tool for addressing issues associated with the economic life of the town. That said, I'm concerned about the methodology used in the creation of the new Economic Development Authority. The town has felt some pressure to appoint its members quickly to get grant funds associated with the Lilliston building restoration. It looks like decisions about appointments to the EDA are being made in a panicked manner with a lack of transparency. This is not a private personnel matter. It is a volunteer service to the community, and the candidates and their applications should be a matter of public record. I'm also concerned that the applicants should represent interests of the businesses of East Market Street, which is definitely being treated as a second-class citizen in all the discussions of the redeveloping the community. I'm thinking of minority business people and youthful entrepreneurs as well. Putting the application in the town website is not sufficient for recruiting people who can speak for underrepresented constituencies. To create an economic development authority of people who are just like us, or with whom we are not wholly comfortable because of their age, their ethnicity, their proximity, or their politics, is a bad idea. I believe that true progress for Onancock depends on teaming up with people who will challenge our comfort and bring other ideas to the table. If the applicants, and I'm sure you got really fine applicants, but if they only represent the predicted constituencies and the usual faces, I urge town council to consider making at least some of the appointments short-term to pave the way for new voices, to recruit new voices actively, and to expand the committee, perhaps to expand the committee to include members from other groups. Let's bring some new faces to the table. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I request that my comments be inserted verbatim in the official minutes of the meeting. Thank you.
Greg Temple.
Good evening, Gregory Temple. I live at 76 Market Street here in town. Some of what I have to say is going to be moot considering the previous discussion that you had regarding the Planning Commission. I guess I would just point out to you that the reason that you are referring this amendment and the ordinance back to the Planning Commission is because they held a vote on an amendment and an ordinance on August 7th without holding the public hearing. And therefore, they really need to go back and do that in order to be part of the code. So that's really what you're doing, is sending them back and asking them to obey the code. Excuse me. But what I really wanted to talk about was the general attitude that was displayed at that meeting by the Planning Commission on August 7th. You know, the first thing that happened was they were told they could not be heard, and they simply shifted their seats and continued deliberating, and they still couldn't be heard. And that was just sign of terrible disrespect for the people who showed up for the meeting to hear their deliberations. Why is that important? Well, you were there, 4 of the council members. I was there. We heard what was said. Their deliberations were really quite short and quite to the point of why they were doing and what they were recommending. Then they send this letter, which contains a whole lot of things that they did not discuss at the meeting. They didn't deliberate this at the August 7th meeting. So, you should ask yourself why. And also, this letter's unsigned. Is it really the consensus of the Planning Commission? So I just think that we can do these things better at public meetings. People can hear, and there's a transparency of what they're doing and why they're doing it. Lastly, you as a council will soon be asked to vote on an amendment to Article 8A to include a requirement for an SUP. I urge you to do the right thing for the community, to listen to the advice of the town's attorney, and adopt the amendments as proposed. Thank you.
Greg Feldhausen.
Greg Feldhausen, 5 Ames. I want to take this moment to specifically thank all of the council members for their deliberations this evening. I know that they're difficult. The comments I made back in July were directed to try to get the council to become aware of the legal rules that are a function of our state of Virginia. And I appreciate the fact that you're listening to those at this time. I do think a special use permit is in order. It is not meant to limit the Friends of Anancock School, but it is the type of procedure that in the future will protect this town from anybody coming in and deciding they want to do things in any given fashion. So a special use permit will give the town council and the citizens of this town the opportunity to openly address the shortcomings of whatever procedure it may be. Special use permits are used for citizens of the town that want to use their homes for rentals, for having bread and breakfasts, for whatever occasion it may be. And I feel that the Friends of Anancock School, any organization in the town that bears some burden, places some burden, whether it be parking or safety, should have those restrictions in place. And I don't mean to disparage anything that's happened, but as an example, recently there was a Croker fishing tournament. Cars with trailers, boats were parked up and down Main Street and King Street. If a fire ever occurred at Hopkins Store, how are the fire department going to get down there to manage that? This is no different than what's going on in the neighborhoods around the historic Anancock School. I think it's good to have a plan for safety. I don't want to see our town burned down again, which it has done. And I'm not saying that that's anything that can happen, but it requires special preventive things such as a special use permit to allow us all to live in safety in this community. I appreciate your time and your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Patsy Feldhausen? No comment? Thelma Gillespie?
Thelma Gillespie, 4 Watson Street. I'm a part of the Northeast Block Grant Committee. And yes, we have 6 houses in our neighborhood that are derelict and they really need to be torn down. We have all kinds of rodents this summer alone. We've had snakes, we've had possums. I mean, it's a mess. And we've waited for years since we started this committee to get rid of these houses, and they are still, all 6 of them still up. So we're looking forward to next month, we'll at least get some of them done. Another thing, I want to thank the town council for your approval on the gym equipment for the playground in the northeast section. It's a journey to try to travel all the way downtown to bring my great grandchildren because I've been their babysitter for the summer. And so I'm looking forward to that equipment being put up in my neighborhood so I can walk there instead of trying to pile them all in the car. And that way we will stay in a northeastern Hancock and stay out of your neighborhood. Secondly, I want to talk about, and I won't be long, how appalled I was at the last meeting. I was so appalled at the town council, how they acted. Some of you have attended, and I can tell you I was there. Some of you have attended the Nancock Main Street Initiative meetings, and you know that these people on that committee work so hard to bring new ideas, the town logo, different things, the $1 million that they're doing the Littleton building, and now another $1 million to do something else. We're not lending that money out of our discretionary fund. We're not giving that money from there. That money is coming to us, and after we loan it to them and they pay us back, the town of Nancock gets to keep that money and to loan it to somebody else. So I just think was so awful how you all most of you treated the people on that committee. And I applaud you, Fletcher, for standing up and finally breaking the tie, because they did not deserve how they were treated at our last meeting. And I just had to say that. I just had to get it off of my chest to let y'all know that I hope that in the future, y'all will make a way that these people will be able to go into that building until such times that you really come up with the ideas for what you need to use it for. But for now, we talked about it when I was on the town council. You were going to just have empty space. But here, this committee wants to use it until such time that you do come up with an idea to use it for. And it was such a big issue. I was so shocked at you guys. I really was. So sometimes it's all right to say, okay, we're going to put a stop to something. But this is a great organization. Look at what they are doing for this town. So please, sometimes think it through before you attack these people. I went out to rush out to talk to Janet because I was so upset. I was almost to tears, but she had already left because I didn't feel like she deserved that. So come on, we are a town, we are a community, and like the lady just said, let's stay together like a community. We can't have issues just for you and the issues for over here. We have to do it all together. So I wanted to write a letter, and I've been babysitting so many great grandkids this summer till one of them pulled the plug out of my computer and I thought it was broke,
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
So that's why I had to write my letter, because I really had planned to send the letter.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Karen Belknap, is she still here? Karen? Oh, there's her hiding over there.
I wasn't aware I had 3.5 minutes, so I can extend this a little bit. And I'm going to try to do a little bit of extemporaneous, but not sure if I'll remember all my thoughts that aren't written down. First of all, with all due respect, if it was the town's responsibility for losing track of the 2008 ordinance, it's also the town's responsibility to reinstate it. To do otherwise is to negate the decision-making and the votes taken by a previous town council. And that doesn't seem right. Go from there if you have to, but 2008 should be reinstated as is. I am speaking as an artist at the Nancock School today. And while I believe the majority of artists that I've spoken with at the school have similar feelings, I'm particularly speaking on behalf of the artists in my wing. And I would like to let you know that Billy Crockett would like to issue a personal invitation to any of you who are not familiar with the school, because you're not there very frequently. He would love to have you stop by so that he can give you his opinions on the matter concerning the school, and fasten your seatbelts if you do. I have asked these to be sent around so that each of you have one. And I have been, my business started in 1998. I've been doing wholesale work since 2011. I am going on 6 years as a resident artist at the school. The first resident artist, it's my understanding, came in about 2009. So there's a history there. So I would like to say good evening to the council members and community members. And I want to point to, which many of you are probably familiar with, the Torpedo Factory in Alexandria, Virginia. It's a renowned community hub that houses working artist studios, galleries, and workshops within a repurposed World War II torpedo factory. It's a unique cultural landmark, and it offers visitors an immersive experience to interact with artists and see art making in progress. Although the school accommodates a wide variety of uses, I'm going to be speaking about the artists tonight. We have a miniature torpedo factory right here in Anacog. The stewards of the school have converted a once dilapidated space into a hive of creative activity for the arts. With each brushstroke and each creation at the school, we are writing new chapters in Anacog's history and enriching its cultural legacy. As I speak, a new mural is being painted in town that celebrates Anacog's historic emphasis on the arts. Like the Torpedo Factory, the historic Anacog School is more than just a building. It is living history. I invite those of you who question our role in the community to come and see for yourself. Immerse in the art and feel the vibe, and you will understand why our artists have a fierce loyalty to their creative home and wouldn't dream of relocating our studios to anywhere else. We are committed to the school and our creative community. It's my understanding that at the last town council meeting in public comments, there was a suggestion made that the artists be removed from the school and relocated elsewhere in town. If we had wanted to do
30
that,
seconds.
excuse me,
30 seconds.
we would have already done that. To wrap up, I'd like to thank the dedicated leadership at the school for bringing it back to life and connecting our town's past, present, and future. Lastly, the school's annual report is public and transparent on its website, and the numbers speak for themselves. The residents' rent contributes significantly to the building and land's upkeep and improvements. Let me be clear, we are not just renting space, we are stewards of a cultural landmark, and everyone at the school is committed to leaving it better than we found it for the enjoyment of future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. The last, Tony Nelson.
Hi, thanks. Tony Nelson, Commercial Buildings, 44 and 25 Market Street. I don't presently live in Onancock. I have purchased another home there. I presently live in Only, having lived in the town of Onancock for 15 years on Ames Street. I don't have anything prepared to say, but I have been a regular attendee of town council meetings pretty much for the duration of my time in town. I have a great appreciation for what all of you do. I've seen many town councils come and go, and it's a very hard job. I listen. I don't have a lot to say. And I do have very mixed feelings about the historic Onancock School. And I very much appreciate what the artist community has always done for the school. And I very much appreciate the intent of people around the school. I also see that it takes the artists there to support the building. And I do have serious questions whether ongoingly the artists can support that. And I think what's dividing the town is not the artist community at the school, it's the pavilion. And it's really killing me to see what that's doing to the town. And having lived on Ames Street for my entire duration in the town, I've heard some noise from that. And it's not been pleasant to live there. And I don't think that we need a performance pavilion to maintain the school property and to divide the town and to tear us apart. And if that's what all of this is about, let's not do it, because we have a lot of new people coming to town, and we don't need to be a divided town over this. And maybe we don't need music blasting, and maybe we don't need people screaming about decibels and have all this other controversy. Let's just have some acoustic music. Let's not have to amplify everything and tear everything apart. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, that ends the public comment period. Okay. All right, moving on to committee reports. Personnel, Cindy.
Personnel Committee did meet this month and went over the town manager's evaluation, which was very successful. And we will probably meet again next month if we have agenda items. I'm hopeful that we can come up with something around the compensation plan, but if we can't, we might wind up not meeting. I'm not sure that we will have time, given the other things we have going on, to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any comments about the Personnel Committee? Good, thank you. Hancock Main Street, Cindy, you're back up again.
Yep. As you all know, the muralist continues to work on the mural that celebrates the history of performing arts and theater in Hancock. It's been very well received by many people, and they express their delight at the subject and at the artist execution of the theme. He's very well trained, highly professional, excellent artist, and we're lucky to be able to have him do the mural. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is the business marketing assistance. Recently, Main Street and Hancock Main Street received $20,000 from the Virginia Main Street for business support in our OMS district, which, as you know, doesn't include all of the businesses in town. It can, since it's from Virginia Main Street, it can only be allocated to serve those within the designated area. So Main Street surveyed the downtown businesses to find out how best to allocate the money, and their requests were around money for marketing. So each business will receive will have the opportunity to receive $450,000. $450.
All right, I'm in.
Whoa. Talking big money.
We needed that.
Okay, that's $450. Then Historic and Hancock School has been offered $2,000, which they can decide how to use that collectively for their in all of their artists and the entire businesses in there. Let's see. There will be guidelines. The money has to be used by November 22nd. And so that'll all be available for public review. But the information's gone to the businesses already and to the school. So they know that this is available.
You said $2,000 is going to the school. And the question or the comments that have come more than one time is, within the district, is the school counts as part of the district, the downtown district?
It is part of the historic Main Street district.
I have a question on the mural. is there, will there be, where will they be, where will there be long-term a key to what all the events and groups and things on the mural on the theater?
The plan is to do a QR code that people could scan and get that information. Possibly also print brochures that would be available presumably at the Welcome Center if that, when and if that happens. But I think there's too much description to put on some kind of plaque to attach to it because each little element is important, you understand, in the progression.
Thank you.
Is there still bonuses available to the gift cards that you presented earlier with the Main Street?
I believe so, yes.
We know so.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
They work right.
Yes.
Any other things from Main Street?
Cindy, right now, people go to the website and see the narrative about the mural.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
The mural narrative is on the Main Street website.
Okay, Sarah, school?
Because of the questions about the zoning and permissions, work on the pavilion remains on hold and will until that's all resolved. So other things that are going on is that we're in the process of getting new soccer nets and the frameworks to hold them. They will be movable so that for groups that need a shorter or longer field, they'll still work. The ones that have been there before have been loaned, and so now there will be new good soccer nets. Events coming up. Oh, sorry, one other thing first before I get to the events. In the last month's meeting, there was a mention in public comment that the lease benchmarks had not been met. That is incorrect. The lease benchmarks are all satisfied. Then events coming up, Wine Wednesday is next Wednesday afternoon. Please come. There will be an Art League member show that will be new and hanging and ready to see. On Saturday, the 23rd of September is the Creekside Crawl and Public Lands Day. So that is going to be a lot of fun activity and it's going to need volunteers. There has been a new presenting of a lot of the memorabilia about the history of the school with some creative repurposing of some former kitchen cabinets into a beautiful display. And there's going to be a dedication of that on October 21st, details to come. And on Sunday, the 12th of November is the Champagne and Oyster Evening fundraiser. We're working on getting new board members as some of the longtime people prepare to rotate off and just keeping things going.
Any questions for?
Yes, I have a question, Sarah. I'm not certain what lease benchmarks are.
In the lease, there are a bunch of things that say by year 1, the school has to, friends of the school have to do this. By year 5, they have to do that. By year 10, they have to do that. Those have all been satisfied.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. On the soccer nets, will they be available all the time for children to use, or is that just something available for the teams?
Joni and Hayden are nodding their heads that they will be there out there all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They are a gift of a grant as well. So.
Thank you. Any other questions about the school then? Planning Commission, Brandon?
I was unable to attend the last planning commission meeting. Is that a work conflict? Matt, do you have anything else to add to that meeting other than we've discussed tonight?
Nothing other than what we discussed tonight.
All right.
All right, Waterfront Committee. T. Lee here? No, he left. Anything on the waterfront? We didn't meet, didn't we?
No, we didn't meet.
Didn't meet, okay, all right. Is there anything, the parking lot thing, is that? We don't need to discuss that?
No, there's nothing really going on.
Okay.
We're trying to get quotes to repair the blocks that
Yeah.
are near the Harbor Master House that need to get repaired.
Okay. Okay.
One other comment on the facade grant. 4 of the people who applied for and received grants have had their work done, submitted their receipts and their photographs of completion and received reimbursement.
Great, thank you.
And some of the others, I think, have had the work done, but we haven't gotten any
Yeah.
requests for payment yet.
What's the time frame for that? For a year, right? Isn't? Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you. Mayor's report, I don't really have much. There's a VML meeting coming up. The annual VML meeting is coming up
Yeah.
in October 7th. And want to know if anybody, that's a Monday, and I was wondering if some of us want to go to that meeting. It's in
It's
in
not the
Norfolk.
annual conference, though.
Annual conference, yeah.
It is
Yeah.
October 7th.
Yeah.
Where is
October
it?
9th, I'm sorry, Monday, October 9th. It's in
Where?
Norfolk at the Omni.
I saw that.
Yeah,
When's
so-
the deadline for registering?
I think we got a couple weeks, so we need to, I need to figure out how much we need. If you want to go, let me know. I think we can come up with some money to send you. Yeah. Okay, well, you don't have to tell me now, but I think it'd be nice if a few of us went to see what's going, sometimes seeing what other towns are doing is, hugely thing that helps. I think one of the speakers made a comment that the planning commit, we were sending it back to the planning commission. And I think he gave the impression that they had done something that wasn't correct. That was not true. They just recommended to us something that needed to go out to a public hearing. They did not, that's how the process is supposed to work. So there was nothing that was done incorrectly there. They forwarded their recommendation to us and for us to ask for a public hearing. So that's how it went. I don't think anything was done. We're not trying to correct them or anything. That they did it properly.
Yeah, they did. And normally we go to joint.
Yeah,
public
right,
hearings
yeah.
for that,
That's
so-
how the process is supposed to work. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah, they
all
don't-
we're doing now is adding one more opportunity
Right.
for the public to
Yeah, they have to vote to go out to public hearing, and then they vote on, after they hear the public hearing, they vote again to recommend it to us, which is they normally do sitting in here. So that's all I have. Okay, town manager report.
Mine's written in the packet. I'll just run through. The Jefferson Street project, which is adding sewer and water to the 13 parcels that are there near the dog park. If you've been there lately, you'll see the sewer lines are staged in the corner. We're still looking at about September 15th for that. Once the group gets together to talk about the logistics of how locals will get in and out, there's nobody that is going to be affected by the traffic other than the dog park visitors. We have to figure out what we're doing there. So when we figure that out with the construction company, I'll put that out in an email and text. Holly Street is still one of those big problems. After every rainstorm, you see it. VDOT's got it on their list. They have not updated with a date, but there it is. They just keep pushing it. Ms. Gillespie mentioned the Northeast Revitalization Project, that we should actually start to see some movement on that. That's been a long time coming, so that's going to be pretty exciting to see those places get demoed. The owners still retain ownership, so they actually get quite a benefit from this. Popping down the VDOT projects, the big ones that are underway are obviously the police station and the welcome center. We're ARPA projects. ARPA, I'm sorry, thank you. Yep. So we're up to one last thing we need. Now, this is silly, but we need to find the sewer line that's leaving that building so that they can determine whether it's sufficient to handle the new load from the flushes. So today they went out and tried finding it, and we believe it's daisy chained through the buildings with Lilliston and whatnot. We're really hoping that's not the case, but we're still searching. But once we find that, then they'll be able to finish documents, get them into the county, because they are done. We're just waiting to do that. So as soon as we find the materials and the diameter of that pipe, then they'll finish up their diagrams, and then we can go to the county. They've already seen it for health, so it should go very quickly to permit, and at that point we can get it out to bid. So those are the two big things coming.
So if it is connected through the Williston building, will it remain that way or will it have to be disconnected?
No, we'll have to disconnect it, and that would actually be a bigger problem because the line that services that area, there's no sewer line on Market Street at that section, so you have to go all the way down to the creek.
My God.
Not a fan. So we're hoping that there's a nice big 6-inch PVC line, but we haven't found it yet. It's hard to find PVC. You can't use a metal detector or whatnot, so.
Any questions about town manager? Financial report? Any questions on that one?
I was just gonna ask Matt one question on the buildings that you're demolishing. You said the owners still have title to that property?
Yes.
Are any of these in delinquent tax status?
Not one of these three. There are 2 of the remaining 3 that are, and we're trying to work on, first of all, one of them is very small, so I'm not gonna hold it up for that. The other one, we're gonna have to work with.
I remember that was an issue a while back, trying
Still
to
is.
get the okay to even demolish it.
Any other questions, Matt?
Yes. On page 27, Matt, you said that it takes all 3 guys, meaning Department of Public Works guys, right?
Yeah.
At least a day each, plus the huge project of providing water service to all of Jefferson. 3 guys, 1 day wages. Are we charging connection fees to compensate that?
Yes.
Good. Keep it quick.
Any other questions for Matt?
I have one.
Cindy?
On the air conditioning for upstairs of this building, if our, when you let the bids and get those back and begin to let contracts for the construction work that's already being done on this building and the Chandler building, if there are sufficient funds available, can you fold that into that contract? Or is it a totally separate process?
I would, I probably, and I'm going to add it as an add alternate to the police department budget, so that if they can increase the tonnage by a couple, the same thing can stay in place and we could just put, open air duct. So that's my plan.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing, the police department renovation, will that include public access into the police department?
Yes.
Good.
There's gonna be a counter there with
Great.
glass and, somebody sitting there when they're on duty, when they're not patrolling.
Another question. On the security cameras, it's, the wording seems very similar to last month, that there
Yeah.
were a lot of adjustments to be made. Are those iterative and still continuing, or have they not gotten to start yet?
No, we've started, and one of the issues that we're having is the license plate readers are only capturing, a lower percentage than we'd like to see, so we've got to get those positioned properly. There's also a question about whether or not we want to get an additional type of camera there that's more specific to that function, and moving the cameras that are there into a more troubled area that can really use the cameras. So it's not just function, it's what's going to be most helpful to our police. And there's a couple of streets that really need cameras.
All right, any other questions for Matt?
I was just going to say, Matt, that we discussed at one point getting the word out to the public that these cameras
Yeah.
are up and in use.
Yeah, it's going to be in my next manager's minute.
Thank you.
Council comments, Ray? Joy?
I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I think we had a good representation of the town, and I know it is a goal for us to reach resolution on this pavilion issue and work to bring our town back together. So thank you for attending, and thank you for your patience.
Cindy?
No comment.
Did you want to say something about meeting twice a month? Okay. Oh, okay. Mavis?
Okay.
Oh,
I don't know which way we're gonna go.
You're the next.
Okay. I just wanted to say there are 2 sides to every story. And where we stand with the school is one thing, and where we stand with the pavilion is totally another. And if we could just separate those two things and not just keep applauding what Haas has done, because you cannot measure the value of what they've done. I don't belittle that in any way. I'm just trying to say thank you for that. But let's look at this other issue as a separate issue, because it is. Thank you.
Sarah, Brandon? All right, the final thing is tonight, we're gonna, we have, as you know, we're forming on EDA, and we have applications for the Economic Development Authority. We're going to go into we're allowed to go into closed session to discuss the applications, and then we're going to come back out of closed session and vote to appoint people, hopefully, if council's will is such, to appoint people. And I'll tell you that the people that we put it up on the website. Matt and I and some of the council people did a lot of recruiting to try to get people to interested in signing up for this. So we have the application so far are Bill Chandler, who's a retired real estate agent. Probably most of you know him. Jake Dillon is on the Planning Commission. Some 30 to 25 years in banking, his resume. We have Steve Johnson. Everybody probably knows Steve. He's retired insurance executive, hugely instrumental in developing the getting the sewer system transferred over to the other company. See, he's got a bunch of things here. Rosemary Papero, she lives on Papero. I'm sorry, I pronounced her name right. Lives over on Holly Street. She's been here quite a while. She's had some experience with a fair amount of was consultant to owners and developers, mostly in New York City. She's an applicant. Katie Schwab lives over on Mount Prospect Avenue. Yeah, she's an attorney that mostly was working in New York, but now lives here full time. And then Carl Smith lives down on King Street. I'm trying to figure out, he's a territorial sales manager for several different jobs. He lives, I'm not sure how long he's been here, but
They bought the house from Scott and
Oh, right.
Kathy.
The Airbnb on
The
on King Street.
Airbnb, 6 King Street,
Okay.
bought it as an Airbnb and then decided, why are we not raising our 3 boys here, and moved here full
Well, they live
time.
here full time, yeah. Kendra Stearns, who lives at 14 Market Street. She is an attorney and does have experience, a lot of experience in real estate law, and she is pretty much a full-time resident as well. And finally, Michael Ward, town resident. He is, as well as an attorney, served has several jobs that worked for the commissioner of the Northampton Planning Commission. He's also been an attorney for years, and he lives over on Divisions. Liberty, right. And you've probably seen him.
And Jeff.
Fletcher, there's one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. And then
Jeff Fernand.
Jeff Vernib, who is lives over on off of Market Street, and he's the King Street. He is the is on the Main Street board, as well as very active in the OBCA organization. So they're the applications, and we need to pick. We're allowed to have up to we need 7 people on the board. We're allowed to have 3 council members. So we council needs to decide how many we appoint. So we could either appoint 4 or 5 of these members. And so we will probably come back out of a closed session and hopefully appoint some people.
Does this allow for alternates? Does the EDA allow for alternates?
I'm not sure I understand that question. You mean alternate?
Somebody who can't attend or doesn't, or drops out, do you have a backup?
So if we
That's in the code.
I think that's in
If,
it.
if
Well, we have to, somebody mentioned, yeah, we would stagger terms, but I think if you're appointed, if you don't show up, you don't show up. You can't have somebody else show up for you. That's what you mean.
No, it's not. It's a person standing.
Oh, I see. I don't know about that one. I think we either appoint somebody or don't appoint them. Okay, let's go back.
This one's mine.